Hi, everyone. I'm just giving you an update. People keep asking me questions of how did you come up with the most recent albums and making decisions on how to create music and why to create music using the Hebrew alphabet and the letters. So this is just a real quick story to answer some questions and just to show you how super excited I am about it, just because it's lining up with what the scientific research has been saying about this. So I've taken a couple notes. So if I look down every once in a while, it's because I'm reading my notes, because I'm answering some questions that people have asked of me. Uh, Basically, it started out as kind of a question. One of my friends said to me, "Hey, why don't you take the Hebrew alphabet and see if we can find the musical frequencies of the Hebrew alphabet?" They all have, the Hebrew alphabet has what's called gematria, numbers assigned to it, and a lot of people call that numerology. And I'm like, challenge accepted. I knew nothing about it. I mean, I knew that there were healing properties within the Hebrew language itself, simply because you can go look back over 3,000 years of history, and they set up every month as basically a way of bringing healing and wholeness in your life each year. So each month was designed to help people walk through the struggles and things in their life. And they've been practicing that for 3,000 years. Um, so I knew that there was something in it. And especially with the numerology, because a lot of my research has been about musical frequencies in various places. And I'm not going to go into all those nitty gritty details, but when someone gave me a challenge, I'm like, okay, I can do that. So therefore, we started a 5-year journey. It took me a long time. And I had this desire to see if I could find an answer. And at first I'm like, ugh, this is a lot of work. I don't know anything about this. Ugh, how much research am I going to have to do? I mean, those of you who've been to college and have done the masters and doctoral degrees know what kind of work goes into that. In a lot of ways, I felt like I was writing a dissertation all over again. I'm like, been there, done that, bought the t-shirt. Do I really want to do it again? So anyway, at first I felt extremely overwhelmed because I was in an area that I knew nothing about. Well, I knew about the musical frequencies and things, but I didn't have a lot of knowledge about the Hebrew culture. So I went on YouTube, watched rabbis talk about, gematria, the Hebrew months. I read books and books and books, and I just putting knowledge into my brain, going, okay, you need to learn this, you need to learn this, you gotta, and it was extremely overwhelming at first. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm not Jewish. I don't know a whole lot about the culture. So what kind of credibility do I have, even if I do find this information out? And so I had to tell myself, wait a minute, you're a musician. You have classical training, you have 3 degrees in music. So you're coming at this from one angle, and you can borrow materials and you can talk to people who know what they're doing. You take your knowledge, you combine it with their knowledge, and then you can come up with what you're looking for. And sometimes it just takes us a while to believe that we can come up with what it is that we need. And I knew that there was an answer. I mean, I found all kinds of information. I mean, and I even write a blog post about this, and I can't even remember where it is, but it's on healingfrequenciesmusic.com. Go look through the blog post to find it. But I would look at all the different ways people were taking and making music out of the Hebrew language. They were using Cantillon, I think it's called Cantillon markings, and using the different words and figuring stuff out by how they would say the words. I mean, if you go in and you listen to a cantor, who is the person who reads the Torah, they actually sing. It's, they say chanting, but they're singing. And you can print off a sheet of the music that shows exactly what they're doing. I'm like, So the more I got into this, the more I realized there was something to it. And I'd get close and I'd have something and I'm sitting there thinking, man, what is it I'm looking for? But for me, that just made the desire even stronger. It's like, you know, one time I went to a music festival when I was in college, and someone said, here's a piece of music. This is one of the most difficult pieces of music that a clarinet player, because I'm a clarinet player, has ever had to play. It takes weeks to learn this. I said, want to bet? I'll have it learned by tomorrow. And they're all like, no, you can't do it. Where there's a will, there's a way. So I went into a practice room, and for 8 hours a day, I just hammered that thing. Of course, I started slow, gradually worked up the metronome, did all the things that you're supposed to do as a good musician, came back the next day and nailed that puppy. And they're like, what? So I knew that I had desire. You know, when someone gives me a challenge, I'm like, say, challenge accepted, I'm going to do it. Just because I want to be able to work through, and I want to find the answers. This answer took me 5 years. And that was frustrating at times because in reality, it sat right in front of me a whole year. What the problem was is I had to get my mind out of what I thought was going to be the perfect answer. You know, we go into some things with expectation, and I had to learn to throw those expectations out the window. And the epiphany, I guess, came like, whoa, moment on all this was I'm sitting there looking at my chart. Because what I did is, you know, I wrote all the Hebrew letters out, and I was looking at all the different forms. There's like 22 different forms of gematria. And I knew it had to do with patterns, and I figured out all the patterns. I wrote it all down, and I'm like, okay, there's got to be something here. But I expected that it was going to, when I had it, it was going to be this gorgeous melody. Okay, so again, see, I said the word expectation. And so my expectations made me feel like I was just hitting a wall all the time because I couldn't let go of those. So really, once I decided to take a fresh look at this from something outside of what everyone was telling me it was going to be and what I thought it was going to be, all of a sudden it was there. The other thing I realized is sometimes it takes a little bit more maturity in some areas. That's a word we probably don't like to hear, but you sit there and you have something that sits in front of you, and all of a sudden, after more research and more stuff, there's this one tiny little piece that you're missing. Bam, that piece falls into places, and there you are. And that's what happened. I was just staring at the chart one day, and all of a sudden, this voice inside me said, this is what you need to do. And I looked at it, and it's like, whoa, you know, and I'm like, okay. And it made me super excited. And what I did is the very night that I figured it out, I sat down at my keyboard and I just like, okay, this is really cool. So if I take this, and I create music with this is what it's going to sound like. And I sat there for hours. I created an entire album in like 3 hours just by sitting there practicing this epiphany that I had about this music. And of course I'm, you know, like, ooh, really excited about this because I knew it was right, because it was lining up with what we know about nature. It was perfectly lining up with what the Hebrew culture themselves were saying, as well as archaeology. I mean, if you look at the time, let's say King David, they found lyres. And some guy in the British Museum, who's a total geek with all this stuff, he's a musical archaeologist. He's one of the foremost authorities on this. And they were able to figure out the tunings of these lyres and everything. And this system I discovered actually fits within what he's talking about. It's in how to tune the instruments and all of that stuff. And that's where my musical knowledge falls into place, because I'm like, okay, I understand what an octave is. I understand what a perfect fourth and what a perfect fifth is and how that fits in with the harmonic series and blah, blah, blah. And I'll spare you that agony. But the cool thing is I realized how all of the dots were connected. And, you know, after I did the research on the Hebrew language and I did the research over here about the musical archaeology part and comparing all these things, I would say, in a way, I had a musical transformation, because what it did, number one, it changed my paradigm in how I thought this whole process worked. Now you might be asking, well, what does this have to do with healing music? The Hebrew culture has healing built into every one of the months, and they consider the letters living letters. They were active. And so the cool part is they've been using this practice for over 3,000 years. And, you know, you go back and you look at some of the ancient Chinese practices, all of that stuff is coming back to the forefront now. Acupuncture, all of those things have been around for 3,000 years. Natural healings, using herbs, using plants, flower essences, all of these things have been practiced for thousands of years. And we're starting to realize now that if we go back to a natural form of healing, that helps us rather than all the drugs and the pharmacia and all the things that we're using now. I'm like, okay, so what if I were to take the Hebrew months and the healing practices that have been built into each of the months and basically use what's been built into the system for 3,000 years and piggyback on it and then pull it out and create music, create activations for people that they can use to practice. And this is where I go back to the classical musician part of things. If you want to be good at something, you got to practice. And I think that healing is part of that. It's, we go to the doctor, they give us whatever drug, take this for 10 days and you're going to feel better. But that's just one part. But we don't realize how important our thoughts, our intents, what we say, all of that stuff plays an important part in the healing process. And this is all built in to the Hebrew culture and how they use their months as a healing process. So for me, the transformation of all of this has everything to do about pulling in all of these different entities into the healing process. So you don't have to be Jewish to understand how healing of the Hebrew months works. I mean, we use Chinese medicinal practices, we use acupuncture, we use all of these things without having to be Chinese or whatever other healing opportunity is out there for us. So all I'm doing is taking an ancient language or ancient people's thought processes that have worked for them for 3,000 years and bringing it to the forefront and offering people an opportunity to use that as part of what I call a healing protocol through practice. And so that's what the whole healing of the Hebrew months through music is all about. And my goal is to show us how we can use the music of the Hebrew months and the Hebrew letters as a healing tool to bring our entire body and our souls into alignment with who we were actually created to be, so we're no longer sick. I mean, how many of you are sick and tired of being sick and tired? So I'm just really excited about the opportunities that are available through the Hebrew language and the Hebrew months and the Hebrew culture as another tool for us to bring healing into our bodies. So with that, I thank you for this little moment of listening to my little story about how I came up with the musical frequencies of the Hebrew letters. And if you want more information, just go to healingfrequenciesmusic.com. Check out the blog posts on the Hebrew Gematria and the Healing of the Hebrew Letters. Check out the albums, the Song of the Month, and the activities that I have, you get to participate in. So I hope this answered some of your questions, and feel free to send me your comments, questions, or suggestions. Thank you.